like that too a little bit. Obviously, Diablo has like way more pay to win skins and shit like that. But you just explained every sports game. First of all, that is okay. I'm an old school gamer. Okay, I'm an old school gamer. I lived through the halcyon days of gaming. Okay, where Japanese Street was making fucking games that wasn't the same exact game over and over again. Rockstar, sorry, not Take-Two. Take-Two was Rockstar, I think, right? Back in my day, Rockstar used to fucking make video games, okay? And it wasn't just like the same fucking game over and over again through 8 different fucking console systems. Okay? Rockstar is on my Take-Two, yes. Bro ain't a gamer, he's just old. And back then, they used to like make these big budget AAA single player games that were fucking awesome. Okay? There was a story, it was compelling. Might not have been like super replayable, but it was awesome. It was like this vast, expansive universe that sucked you in. It was captivating. You don't really get that anymore. You don't. It's fucking few and far between. You know what I mean? It's not necessarily a thing that is like very commonplace. So when a massively successful developer still chooses to create something like that and keep putting out good product like that, I'm going to have a special place in my heart for that kind of developer, that kind of publisher.
Hand-holding or assistance can also still be a massive success that millions of people will connect with and absolutely adore. I am certainly one of those millions. And while typically brilliant, I also believe that FromSoftware's games are unfortunately far from perfect, and Elden Ring is sadly no exception. And I want to talk about it. But first, I must warn you that I will be spoiling the absolute Moonlight Greatsword out of all of these games, so if you haven't experienced them for yourself, particularly Elden Ring, I strongly suggest you hit pause on this video and go savor that experience first and come back in about 200 hours, because it is quite possibly the greatest experience I have had.
You're wrong. There are more games like that than ever. You're just looking at the most expensive ones. You're falling for the marketing. My friend, I literally said AAA, like big developer AAA titles for a particular reason. I know that there are beautiful fucking indie games. I play them from time to time. Hades is a great example of this. I loved it. Disco Elysium is another great example of this. I also love that. You're personally losing sight of the argument that I'm making in order to just like appear as though you are nerdier than thou. Okay?
Playing a video game in my 28 years of holding a Player 2 Mad Catz controller that isn't actually plugged in. Regardless, I believe it is no exaggeration to say that in the world of video games, FromSoftware has truly changed everything.
Your takes on gaming suck. GTA 5 is the most popular game of all time, but it is somehow bad. Man, you're qualified to talk about the state of gaming. You are barely in the culture. Bro, dissing GTA like it's not the most popular game of all time. Fucking bad take. What happened?
I feel like
Did you like shove too many shark cards in your asshole and then they just like ended up poisoning your brain or something? First of all, don't ever fucking gatekeep gaming, you pathetic nerd, okay? We get it. You've never gotten pussy and you never will. You will die alone. That's number one. Number two, Grand Theft Auto 5 was awesome when it came out and I played it. And then I played it again. And then I played it again. My point is, once you land on a fucking solid IP, milking that same fucking IP over and over again is disgusting. Make new games. Okay? That's the point. Grand Theft Auto 5 was great when it came out in like 2009, idiot.
Demon's Souls was released in 2009 for the PlayStation 3 and was nothing like other big games coming out at the time, especially in 2009. In a year where games were becoming more and more cinematic and accessible and forgiving to a casual audience, Demon's Souls crawled out of a wet crypt and said, "I will kill you." Demon's Souls, like all the Souls games that came after it, is a very challenging and unforgiving video game.
I will also forever respect Bluepoint for literally taking this fucking 2009 game and making it and perfecting it for our modern tastes. It was probably one of the best, in my opinion, if not the best ever first gen immediate new console video games that has ever arrived with a console. And then there was no other games for that particular console ever again. Okay? PlayStation 5 came out of the gate swinging with that banger, and then they were like, no, we're done. It's over. Nothing else. Is Breath of the Wild a first generation? Would Breath of the Wild be considered like a console release game? Or did it come out afterwards? If that's the case, then I would say was Breath of the Wild a launch title? Oh, it was on Wii U. Oh, yeah, okay, whatever.
Difficulty that fans of the series often lovingly refer to as hard but fair. So let's maybe settle on hard but mostly fair. After joining FromSoft in 2004 and working as a coder on the Armored Core series, Hidetaka Miyazaki took over as director on a struggling high fantasy project that was running into some serious issues during development. Because the project was already seen as a failure inside the studio, Miyazaki was basically like, I'm gonna take this thing and I'm gonna take it out back to the garage. I'm gonna do some stuff to it. Inspired by FromSoft's own Kingsfield series, Miyazaki wanted to make a dark fantasy, gameplay-driven experience in collaboration with Sony Japan Studio. A challenging but rewarding experience that took gaming back to its basics, something he felt was dying out at the time. During development, Miyazaki actually tried to keep the harsh difficulty aspect on the low from publisher Sony, fearing that they might want to change it for being a bit too extreme, much like a BMX riding video game. That sucked. Breaking down the basic gameplay of Demon's Souls will...
To be fair, I'll say this. Only a Japanese publisher will do something like this. I've never seen anything like this from any kind of Western developers. This is not like a Japan soy thing. But like, at least Japanese titles have always had a fair bit of difficulty. And like, I'm thinking of, Ninja Gaiden and numerous other like incredibly difficult games that do nothing for you. Like, they will not help you. It's just like JRPGs do have a history of being like very difficult.
Will effectively break down the basic gameplay for all of the Souls games that followed because the very core design pillars have gone largely unchanged. It starts with a character creator that, before you say anything, I know, it gets better with time, that lets you pick a starting class, dictating your capabilities with different weapons or magic. A third-person lock-on camera system for combat that improves on the Z targeting system that Ocarina of Time introduced back in 9.8, that you can control the camera and attack people at the same time, which was kind of a breakthrough in and of itself. Animation-based combat that requires you to commit to each action and wait until the animation finishes before you can do something else, along with managing how that action affects your stamina bar, or in the case of casting spells, your magic bar. But I didn't raise you to cast no spells. This is a Claymore household just like my father and his father before him. A dodge roll that contains invincibility frames, or iframes, meaning
fucking
that if you time your dodge right, nothing can possibly hurt you, similar to action games like Devil May Cry. Corpse running, where if you die, you drop all the currency you've racked up from killing enemies, and you gotta make it back to that spot without dying, otherwise you lose it forever.
Isn't that Sonic? Wasn't that like the first game that introduced that mechanic? Maybe I'm wrong. I'm actually asking. I don't have a... No? Magic is completely useless in Souls games? That's insane. That's an insane statement. What? Especially in like newer ones? Are you kidding? What? I mean, I never play Magic, but that's crazy to say. What the fuck?
Passive and non-passive online interaction where other players can leave helpful tips or whatever the opposite of a helpful tip is, along with summoning or being summoned as a random cooperator to help, or invasions to either kill or be killed. And you know, the gameplay of each individual Souls game obviously goes a lot deeper than that, with different complex systems and healing items and stupid convoluted bullshit like world tendency that you need a fucking master's degree to understand. But the challenging and methodical combat system, that has always been the beating heart of all of these games. A heart that's married to another heart. Exploration. You know how in my Rockstar's game design video, I really harp on how those games constantly berate you with hyper-specific instructions and yellow map markers and assume you have the IQ of a tiny baby rat? Yeah, the Souls games do like the exact polar opposite. The tiny baby...
Yeah, that's like kind of what makes, especially the first like 3 hours of Red Dead Redemption 2, which I still think is like the most breathable, the most alive universe created in a video game. Okay? Better than Breath of the Wild in that regard. Breath of the Wild's a close second, in my opinion. That hand-holding, slow-paced, crippling baby shit is so frustrating that you literally are like, you're like, I don't want to play this. I don't want to like replay it. It's just so fucking annoying. Yes, Witcher 3 is also a very expansive universe that seems alive, but I don't think that it's I think Red Dead is like, you know, it's just the #1. It's a 10 on immersion, but it literally has no gameplay. It's the least compelling part of Western developed AAA titles, which is like the fucking hand holding like fetch quests or like the slow paced walking quests. It's like, I've never watched a movie where I'm like, oh wow, this walking scene is so memorable. Okay? Like, I get it. You made a beautiful world and the world is breathing, even if you're not there to see it. And that's the feeling that you want to leave viewers and gamers with. But it's like, you can't constantly make people do that. Okay?
Baby rat is now actually a boss, and you have no idea what the fuck is going on. And what makes exploration so compelling in Demon Souls, and really all Souls games, is that it is true exploration that really makes you feel like Batman. No, it really makes you feel like an explorer. There is no detailed map that you can rely on and consult, only your own sense of direction and understanding of a space. This, along with a strong...
The handholding's a Western thing shows me you're not a real Weibo gamer. I'm not. The real secret is that I fucking despise most of like I don't play Dynasty Warriors. I'm not like I hate Genshin Impact and games like that. I hate most anime games. So like I actually am literally not a weeb at all when it comes to gaming, with the exception of obviously Hideo Kojima, my lord and savior, my king, but he is the biggest Ameribu of all time. And also FromSoftware games. And also some Nintendo games as well. And also Yakuza as well. But like, those are, I feel like those are very, those are like universally acknowledged games. Those aren't like very, I don't know. Okay, maybe I am kind of a weeb, right? I don't know. Maybe I am. But I feel like the expansive library of Japanese games that are out there that are readily available for people to fucking pick up and play, I don't play a lot of those games.
Challenge and an actual fear of having something to lose, but the corpse running system makes discoveries and victories feel that much more meaningful and rewarding. Because you really feel like you, the player, actually charted and conquered a space and overcame.
This is so true. I've said this before. FromSoftware is the only fucking single-player video game I've ever played that has, like, taught me lessons about life. Okay? God, I'm such a dick writer. It's probably unbearable if you don't like any FromSoftware games. But literally, no, it just, like, ends up fucking teaching you valuable lessons about controlling your emotions, you know, chipping away at a problem and, like, and solving that problem. Those are lessons that you can bring to the real world with you. Obviously, those accomplishments are still hollow, ultimately, because it's a fucking video game. But, you know, it's just, it's real. If you've ever fucking conquered a dark. If you've ever failed to play a From Software game, fear not. I was just like you at a certain point in time. I also got filtered immediately from the first boss, which is like a very famous From Software trope, and dropped the video game like Sekiro for years and years until I went back to it. Same with even Dark Souls 1. I actually never played Dark Souls 1 after the first like big fat guy. Actually, wait, maybe I did kill the big fat guy, and then like I went upstairs and then I stopped playing. Or was that? Yeah, that was Dark Souls 1, I think. I'm not even kidding. Like, I dropped it. I stopped playing it, and then I came back to it, and it was fucking awesome.
Became a significant challenge instead of just watching fucking Wally do it in a cutscene. The Souls games have very few cutscenes or long, unskippable passages of dialogue by NPCs or RPG conversation trees where your choice actually doesn't really matter. Instead, the story is discovered and slowly unraveled by the player through observing their environment and reading item descriptions and inevitably watching Vati Vidya videos because I don't understand any of it.
Yeah, Dark Souls From Software games are so funny because like they've built this wonderful universe with like deep lore, and they literally force you to do your research to like figure it the fuck out. It's just so funny. Like when I played, I think it was Bloodborne that I like first played out of all the From Software games, and I like actually played it through. And when I did that, and I just found myself like reading every fucking item, reading every single fucking item, and then like when I found myself Googling shit about the game, that's when I realized like, oh my god, like I really like this shit. This is fucking crazy. It's so different than any other game that I've actually ever fucking played, because it doesn't give you the story at all. It literally hides the story from you and urges you to go out and seek it on your own.
Of this. So you're saying the rat was like a king at some point, or? I appreciate Miyazaki's approach to storytelling though, because it's very unique to the medium of video games, and was actually inspired by his real-life experience of reading English language sci-fi and fantasy books as a kid that he couldn't fully understand but would fill in the gaps using his imagination. The story is so much more about the general mood and atmosphere and feeling of exploring a place rather than scripted plot points or set pieces. The innovative online elements of summoning random strangers to help you out was actually inspired by Miyazaki's real life as well, where after his car was trapped in snow on a hill, a random group of strangers showed up and helped push the car out of the snow and then mysteriously drifted off into the night like ghosts, drifting in and out of his world at a poorly framed pace, 30 frames per second. These games also have some technical issues. Demon's Souls was not an immediate success. Sony decided to not publish it in North America after feeling pretty negatively about it before its release. During the Tokyo Game Show in 2008, Sony president Shuei Yoshida played it for 2 hours, couldn't get past the starting area, and then stopped playing and said, "This is an unbelievably bad video game." This is the same guy that years later would platinum Bloodborne, and that game is like way harder, so spoiler alert, From Software changed everything, the titular line. It wasn't until later in 2009 when Atlas would publish the game in North America that sales would slowly start to pick up and critics would start to take notice. Western audiences generally loved it because apparently we're all sick, masochistic bastards, and GameSpot even gave it their Game of the Year, the same year that Uncharted 2 and Modern Warfare 2 came out. But along with establishing the core pillars of what a Souls game would be, it's important to talk about just how brave Miyazaki, From Software, and Sony Japan Studio were for making such a different kind of game. Demon's Souls was a huge risk, an imperfect, weird, brutal passion project that was expected by everyone to flop, but refused to compromise on its design goals and eventually found an audience that really connected with it. In 2 console generations later, an extremely faithful remake was published by Sony as a launch title.
It's art, man. It's fucking art. It's art that you can play.
Title for the PlayStation 5. And there you have it. that's it. That's the end. It's the only game they ever made.
I'm almost the same age as you. I've never played a Souls game. Is it too late for me? I mean, if you're a fucking freak, it's not. What do I mean by that? If you're an absolute fucking freak who is not going to give up, you will never... From Software games gives you the sense of accomplishment that you get and the stimulation that you get from multiplayer games, but it's actually single player. That's it. And Elden Ring is the best for beginners probably, because you can just like walk around and run around and totally avoid like all the filter bosses and shit. You've never been invaded? No, man. Of course I've been invaded. I'm just like that. Come on. The bosses that you're killing are single player, okay? That's what I mean. Usually in multiplayer, God, nerds are so fucking annoying, okay? Listen. Multiplayer games are a lot of fun because you're playing against other humans and you like see yourself getting better and you're actually defeating real humans in the real world in many instances. And for that reason, like it gives you a sense of accomplishment, like you see yourself getting better, okay? Whereas single-player games are not like that. They're usually not like that at all. You play it for the story, you like it, you enjoy it. I certainly love playing single-player games. I play them more than I play multiplayer games, okay? Dark Souls is the only, or From Software games are the only franchise that gives you that same sense of accomplishment because of how fucking difficult those bosses are. You are so bad at any game. You actually can't say that because I beat all the From Software games, so suck my dick.
I love Dark Souls, but I also hated Dark Souls. My brother Isaac had played Dark Souls sometime after its release in 2011 and had repeatedly told me to play it. I eventually finally tried it, got past the tutorial section after a lot of struggling, made it to finally...
Yeah. I still remember the day you beat all the chatters in 1v1 Elden Ring. I know. Everyone was like, dude, I'll fucking... Every single person that told me they would own me in the marketplace of ideas got absolutely fucking cumstered by me. It was so fire. It was so great. Because all the chatters had successfully gaslit me into genuinely and legitimately believing... Ooh, new shoes? Nice. Don't worry about it. I was making a bed... I was making a new bed for Kaya, and then she peed. So now she's upstairs in timeout. I don't know where they are. Murat's here. Hasan is bragging about using cheese build to beat people. Wait, hold up. Other people were also using the cheese build, and I still defeated them. What are you talking about? You guys are so stupid. They literally were using the same... Everyone uses meta builds. And I had the fucking meta build. And other people were also using the broken meta builds. What the fuck do you mean? You guys are still butthurt, dude. Oh my God. You watched me slice through these motherfuckers, okay? And you still have the audacity. Here's 45 minutes of me absolutely fucking eviscerating every opponent in the marketplace of ideas, okay? If you want to see it. That's crazy, though.
Shrine, wandered the wrong way into a graveyard full of skeletons, as I know a lot of people did. That graveyard eventually became a dark tunnel of skeletons that killed me a bunch of times, and then I promptly said F this game and stopped playing. I can't remember for what exact reason, but a year or two later, I tried the game again, probably because of my brother's insistence, once again, the bastard he is, and it was different. This time it stuck. Not only did it stick, but it seriously changed my life. I know that sounds super dramatic, but like it completely changed the way I look at video games and why I like to play them, and made me want to talk about them more and examine them. And it absolutely ruined most other video games for me, because once I finished it, nothing could fill the giant rat boss size hole in my heart. Now, if I were to go into all of the reasons why Dark Souls is so significant in gaming history...
You know what I should do? I should play Bloodborne. That's what I should do. I should play Bloodborne on stream and I think I will. 2 games that I want to play on stream: Bloodborne, which I don't remember anything from, so it's basically like I'm playing it again. And the second one is the Walking Dead franchise that I said I was going to, and I haven't. Bloodborne, I'll play when it's released, when they do a remake of it. Bloodborne on PC.
History, we would be here all day and my editor would absolutely hate that.
I am going to kill you.
But on my road to eventually talking about Elden Ring, I do need to touch on 3 crucial aspects that vastly improved on Demon Souls game design. Super Exploration DX Turbo Edition with f***les. Estus Flask, I hardly know her, as best as I can. And Atmosphere, you've been seen. I feel you inside my screen. I also didn't like that. What I mean by Super Exploration DX Turbo Edition with f***les is that Dark Souls fundamentally changed how level design and world design worked within this gameplay formula that Demon Souls established. While Demon Holes over here had a hub world that let you freely fast travel to different zones of varying locales and difficulty levels, Dark Souls over here took a lot of its zones and stacked them on top of each other like a stack of pancakes, and made sure that even if some pancakes have chocolate chips or some pancakes have bananas, that they all seamlessly flow into each other and make sense as one cohesive world in this beautiful interconnected short stack of pancakes. Blighttown is like a pancake made out of pigeons. During the first half of the game, you have no fast travel, and all of the areas are connected in multiple complex ways like a maze. So there's this palpable sense of danger and tension that slowly rises as you venture deeper and deeper into this beautiful, mysterious world that is very clearly inspired by Berserk, which is amazing. That tension is brilliantly paired with the new addition of bonfires, resting points that let you catch your breath for a second and spend your hard-earned currency from fighting enemies and bosses on leveling up your stat points and refilling your much needed Estus Flask. I am of the pretty firm opinion that the healing mechanics found in Demon Souls and Bloodborne and kind of Dark Souls 2 are vastly inferior to the standard Estus Flask system found in the other Souls games. The Estus has a specific amount of healing charges that you can increase throughout the course of the game, and the only way to refill your charges is by resting at a bonfire, which also respawns all enemies in the area. Not only does this provide an extra incentive to seek out and discover bonfires and push on while exploring, but it solves the dumbass problem those other games have where your healing items are a finite currency that you can run out of. Meaning that if you're struggling with the game and you keep dying, and you will likely have to halt progression just to go grind mobs of weaker enemies for healing items or currency that you can then spend on healing items and not leveling up, which feels so unnecessarily punishing in a game where enemies do this to you. With the Estus, you at least know that for the next bit you have a guaranteed specific amount of heals, and much like a survival horror game, the goal is to get to the next.
How many other RPG games do you hoard hundreds of healing items because I might need it later? I mean, I do it in all of those games, but I never actually need it later. The only game where I actually do need it later is FromSoftware games, and actually end up using it is FromSoftware games. Most of the RPGs, most of the other RPG games don't have like a genuine need for that kind of healing. The only other one I can think of, I guess, that I've actually used all my heals when I'm like, fuck, I'm out of it, holy shit, is like Final Fantasy VII. But even then, it's like not that, Final Fantasy VII is not that hard.
Next area using as little Estus as best as you can. I think one of the greatest single improvements over Demon Holes over here is the atmosphere. I will never forget how it felt to get lost in this world. Struggling my ass off through Undead Burg and Undead Parish, and finally being rewarded by finding that shortcut back to Firelink Shrine and hearing that comforting music creep in. That seriously changed the trajectory of my firstborn son's life. He's getting into brown now. Journeying all the way down to first the depths, and then Blight Town, and then finding the entrance that's a secret to the Great Hollow, and making my way down that, and finally ending up at Ash Lake gave me a feeling that I will forever cherish. The inability to easily fast travel back up to Firelink Shrine after I journeyed all the way down there simultaneously had me terrified and also in complete awe of the vertical scope of this world. And there's so much of this game that you can just completely miss. From Software doesn't care if every player sees.
That's the funniest part about it, is that, like, I mean, Nameless King is a great example, right? Dark Souls 3 Nameless King is the most difficult boss in the entire game. Not the DLC, obviously. And you could just totally avoid it. Like, you could just totally never see the Nameless King, ever. And you would never even know it. And yet, it took me years to beat. 144 million points with the nose. 53 millions with the yes, dude. Stop. Stop. That's too much pressure. That's way too much pressure. This shit is gonna distract me, dude. This is like, we're breaking like fucking Twitch records right now with the amount gambled in chat. Okay, don't break frame. Don't break frame. No matter what, don't break frame. That's what I know. At this point, I had like mastered this. You know what I mean? Look at that. Look at the amount of damage. Run, motherfucker. What are you doing? Sometimes I feel like it's crazy that he just like doesn't run. What are you doing? Like, yeah, crit, baby. Oh, you mean your twin blade plus 15 plus cuck mastery? Twin blade trees, wind blade. Of course you ran twin blades. Actually, in DS3, I didn't even go for wind blades until like later in the game. Like, you guys were the ones who fucking made fun of me. I was a strength. I always end up playing fucking strength build, and then at the end of it, I do like a respec. Oh, lazy legs, dude. Get them lazy bones. Yeah, I did strength the whole way, and I think I wind bladed it at the end for Nameless King. Moving, you know. Get them lazy bones moving, boys. That's what I think to myself when my legs ain't working. Yo. This part is so hard, dude. Look at that. I ate that. It was hard because it was unpredictable. The reason why, I know why Nameless King was the hardest boss. The reason why Nameless King was the hardest boss is because every single other boss has a predictable pattern, right? You can actually edge them, and camera too. Camera's the other reason. The Nameless King was the hardest boss in this game. And the only reason why it was the hardest boss in this game is because it didn't actually, you couldn't actually bait it into doing the predictable pattern. The attacks would delay randomly. Like, it was not, Nameless is so predictable, he literally did the same rotation. No. Nameless King literally had unpredictable patterns, in the sense that, like, the attacks were on a delay. The attacks were on a delay, so it, like, fucked up your movement. He has huge tells, but it's still, I think the movement, the combat movement was like, oh shit. Uh-oh. Oh, so good. Not greedy. See that? No greed. No greed, baby. Doing it right. Get a crit. Doing it right. Oh, shit. Oh, this part is so bad. Ran out of... Oh! Oh, he did it. The absolute mad lad, he did it. Yes! Yes! My heart is racing like I'm there again.
And that is how you cultivate a community of believers. Did I just first try that? I'm sorry. Did mass redistribution of wealth just occur in my chat?
Fuck, man. That shit banged, dude. Believers, 70% said you die in Diablo last night. Yeah, people were like shocked that I was able to fucking clap the ass cheeks of the first boss. I don't know how. I think you guys have watched me play too many fucking baby games and get angry. Or like too many scary games and get angry that you're like... All you did is stay in town. This is why these games are so good. Some real ass emotions behind these things. Yeah.
All of the content that they made for this game, and that makes finding the stuff that you do find feel that much more special and memorable. I know it's just all smoke and mirrors and code and textures, but the illusion that FromSoftware sells here is a powerful one. Except for some clearly unfinished areas towards the end of the game, but those don't exist. You made Lost Izalith up. Gaslight, gaslight, gaslight. Unlike Demon's Souls, Dark Souls was a pretty instant success. Critics loved it, and the game reached a much larger audience right off the bat, thanks to Bandai Namco publishing it all over the world on PS3 and Xbox 360. And
for the record, Nameless King and Sekiro prepared me for Elden Ring so much that I fucking ripped through it. I know, Mimic cheese, whatever, but like, even pre-Mimic, like, I was fucking shredding bosses. Like, all the filter bosses that were supposed to be like clapping my ass cheeks, if you recall, like the first fucking boss, I just eviscerated. I think it was like third try or something. And every single person was like, dude, there's no way that's not going to happen. The Mage Invade boss fucked you so hard that she was so funny. Yeah, I know. I literally ripped the first boss, which was supposed to be a filter, and then turned around and got ass fucked over and over again by literally an optional boss that I was one-tapping by the end of the game, just because it was like overpowered for that period in time, but I was too stubborn not to fucking let it go. I was like, no, I'm gonna fucking kill this thing.
PC with one of the most janky PC ports to ever exist. Shout out Games for Windows Live, RIP. This also annoyingly led to so many industry heads resorting to the phrases, it's like Dark Souls, or this is the Dark Souls of blank, when in reality, all they're trying to say is that it's hard. Going to Arby's is like the Dark Souls of going to Carl's Jr. Hollow Knight is very clearly inspired by FromSoftware's approach, and that game is undoubtedly the greatest Metroidvania ever made. I fucking love Hollow Knight, primarily because it perfected a design aspect from Dark Souls 1 that FromSoftware themselves kind of started to abandon with subsequent Souls games. Non-linear exploration. Shut up already! Jesus, that guy loves to talk. Hi, I'm Jakey, and Jakey. World 2, that's a real Souls game. I'm out of here. Dark Souls 2, Bloodborne, and Dark Souls 3 all have much more straightforward progression paths than the first half of Dark Souls 1. And while a lot of areas in these games are technically connected and sometimes offer alternate paths, the general world design is far less interesting from an exploration point of view. And it doesn't mean that these games are bad. All of these games probably each deserve their...
Wait, that wasn't an ad? Yes, it is. It's a Rocket Money ad. Shut the fuck up.
Their own 40-minute feature presentation breaking them down, but for the sake of what I want to get into today, I'm just going to give you the Spark Notes version. Dark Souls 2 dropped in 2014 and was received well and sold well. It further grew the Souls game community and deepened combat systems while adding stuff like power stancing. Miyazaki didn't direct this one, and it does show. The atmosphere of each zone feels a bit random and unconnected from the overall world, but the boss fights in DLC
Never played Dark Souls 2. I played it for like a little bit and I was like, nope, not for me.
Are great, and the game enjoyed a large online community for shit like PvP. Bloodborne was developed alongside Dark Souls 2 and was released exclusively for the PS4 in 2015, and I used money from a car accident to buy a PS4 and Bloodborne instead of paying my rent, and contrary to what my financial advisors might be saying, and Logan Roy looking ass, I'd say it was a wise investment. Directed by Miyazaki, Bloodborne felt like the true follow-up to Dark Souls 1. At least for people like me that just want to swing a big sword and fucking parry everything. Bye-bye magic, go back to fucking Waverly Place. Faster combat that rewards aggressive play. Intricate and varied weapon movesets. An atmosphere that just drips out of your TV with such dedicated attention to detail and talent in the art design department, and rats. Dark Souls 3 dropped in 2016, and by this point the Souls series was poppin' and beloved by many people. Directed once again by Miyazaki, DS3 did everything right on paper. It kept some of the faster paced combat and fucked up enemy designs and boss transformations from Bloodborne, while also returning an expansive armory of weapons and magic, lending to a buttload of different kinds of builds. It has a large amount of fan service and callbacks to Dark Souls 1 and some of the hardest bosses seen in a Souls game yet. It also just feels really good to play and looks beautiful, but also something about this formula was starting to feel just a little bit stale. Don't get me wrong, playing through Dark Souls 3, especially doing co-op boss fights with my brother, was some of the most fun I've had in any of these games. But that strong sense of exploration felt in Dark Souls 1, that feeling of charting your way through a mysterious and dangerous world, I longed for that. The Dark Souls series had completely shaken the game industry and clearly inspired other developers to change how their games were designed and played. But playing Dark Souls 3 felt a bit like listening to FromSoftware's greatest hits versus hearing the band's new album that would maybe take them someplace new. Little did I know, FromSoftware was in the studio working on their In Rainbows, as in the album In Rainbows by Radiohead, as in Radiohead's best album, as in Elden Ring.
God, so good.
Some of you might be wondering, Jacob Matthew, why did it take you so long to make a video on Elden Ring? And I have two answers for you. A, last year I was very busy working on an album called Romcom, shout out jakeymerch.com. And B, this game is just too damn big and felt too daunting to dissect and talk about, and I also just wanted to keep playing it, but I feel like I'm finally ready to get into it with my support group. That's you. This is all of you. Where do I even begin though? Elden Ring isn't perfect, but that's also what makes it so compelling. It's not properly balanced. I mean, none of these games are. They never have been. FromSoft has pretty clear favorites when it comes to certain weapons and buffs and spells. You can absolutely break these games in half if you really want to. But the sheer depth of content that Elden Ring slowly unveils to you during your 200 or so hours of playing it, the childhood fantasy of exploring a fantastical, magical world filled with swords and beasts and, you guessed it, rats, is fully manifested in a way that knows no contemporary. There is no other Elden Ring than Elden Ring. This isn't just the Dark Souls of Dark Souls. This is the Dark Souls of Breath of the Wild. This is the Dark Souls of Red Dead Redemption 2. If you took a time machine back to 2003 and showed my wooden sword in the backyard swinging ass that this is what was coming in the future, I would have shot you in the head and called the cops. Elden Ring is truly the adventure of a lifetime. But because I've already spent so much time talking about the core design pillars that all of these games share, I want to instead focus on certain pillars that Elden Ring innovates on or potentially fails to innovate on. Exploration and scale, dungeons and dragons, starring Chris Pine, and difficulty and accessibility. Where Dark Souls 1's world is like a short stack of pancakes, all connected, Elden Ring's world is like a giant stack of pancakes, and you took all those pancakes and you spread them out across a giant table. And most of the pancakes are touching each other, and some of the pancakes have other pancakes hiding underneath them, and other pancakes might transport you to far pancakes in fucked up ways, and some of the pancakes are on fire and make you feel fear. I don't want to be in this Denny's anymore. Let me out! Miyazaki has stated that Elden Ring is the closest thing to his ideal game that he would personally like to play, and that going open world enriches this ideal experience that he's trying to achieve. A game where if you saw something over there, you could actually go over there. A game that isn't open world just to be in the same category as some bloated Ubisoft bullshit, but
well, I don't get it. It's the same type of game, Jake. Oh, according to our fucking weirdo fan base in here. Anyway.
But a game that's open world because it needs to be. In order to fully capture the fantasy of being an adventurer in a giant world, riding across a vast landscape on your trusty steed, you first need to have that vast landscape to really nail that feeling. Elden Ring was inspired very clearly shows, because like Breath of the Wild, Elden Ring knows and expects that your curiosity will naturally lead you to finding interesting things. There doesn't need to be an overwhelming list of things to check off or obvious map markers going, over here, it's fucking over here. Because that would totally rob the player of a true sense of mystery and discovery when exploring this massive world. Elden Ring is very okay with hiding its hand. This is what the map looks like when you start the game, and this is what it looks like when you finish the game. And these are the pancakes that are cooking underneath you the entire time. Having a chest throw a smoke grenade at you in the starting area and being transported and waking up in one of the most giant late game areas and checking the map and seeing it zoom out like that was an experience I will never forget. And the lore behind the lands between is so rich in detail and intrigue. Miyazaki's style of storytelling through gameplay, combined with the Bible of world history that George R.R. Martin developed for this game, will leave an MF feeling like goddamn Amy Adams, as in downright enchanted. I know I haven't mentioned Sekiro once in this video because it's technically not a Souls game, but it was a crucial stepping stone towards Elden Ring's development. The addition of a dedicated jump button may sound like a simple thing, but it completely changes combat and the way you navigate this world. Exploring the lands between over like 200 hours rivaled the experience I had exploring the first half of Dark Souls 1. They both hit really hard, but for different reasons. The first half of Dark Souls 1 hits hard because of a lack of a fast travel safety net, meaning you become very intimate with your surroundings and the world design nearly suffocates you with its complexity. It suffocates in a good way. Elden Ring hits hard not only because it marks the return of multiple areas connecting to each other with a very non-linear path of progression, but
oh my god, a jump button in 2021, wow, that's crazy. Yeah, it is crazy. That's how perfected the combat mechanism is. That like a jump button dramatically changes everything. If anything, it's a testament to how fucking good the system is. Okay? It did. It changed so much. It's so annoying. Stop saying doing tricks on it, dude. Oh, fuck. I mean, look, I know I don't have a lot of gamers in this audience, okay? Every time I turn on a fucking video game, that much is apparent.
But because of just the sheer scale of the world. But because the sheer scale and intrigue of always wanting to see what's around the next corner is such a big part of this experience, much like Breath of the Wild, the game won't ever hit quite as hard on subsequent playthroughs because that main draw of discovery is no longer there. This doesn't mean you shouldn't play multiple playthroughs of this game because, oh my god, weapons and spells and armor sets and Ashes of War and summoning salt videos, quest lines that you can super easily miss, and you will because they're super convoluted and hard to follow. You should definitely play the game a second time. But I will say that on my second playthrough, I definitely wasn't as eager to revisit all of the content once I knew what was exactly around every corner. Elden Ring has a massive amount of unique and amazing content to experience. But there's also some super not amazing content in there too. In Joseph Anderson's review, which is great by the way, he talks talks about how amazing his first fight with a dragon was. And I completely agree. That first encounter with the dragon in that big ass wet field or whatever, and he's like breaking all of the physics objects. It's amazing. It's such an awesome gameplay moment that is just naturally experienced in your exploring of the world. But I also agree with Joseph's point that because the game ends up having like a billion other dragons that you find, there's seriously so many dragons and they all mostly have the same moveset, it kind of takes away a bit of the oomph of that first experience. It doesn't mean that first experience is invalidated or made bad, but more so it's like if you ate pizza for dinner every night and eventually you were like, all right, I don't really want to eat dragon pizza anymore. Can we have like rat pizza, mom? The same goes for a lot of Elden Ring's catacomb dungeons. Similar to the Chalice dungeons in Bloodborne or the shrines in Breath of the Wild, the quality of experience you might have in one of these copy-paste interiors is a bit of a dice roll. In all of the Souls games, you never know exactly what items you're gonna...
I think the only way to change that would be if it was like, if it basically was like Hades, right? If it was a, what are they called? Not a dungeon crawler. What the fuck is it? A roguelike. Yeah, procedurally generated. But at that point, it's like, well, even then, not really, because like, because you can only make so many bosses that are going to be unique and different.
Gonna find as rewards while exploring, but the areas and bosses are usually so interesting to look at and explore that the real reward is really just getting to experience that area and fight that cool boss. So even if the reward is something you're never gonna use, like another fucking spell, you don't really regret doing it because it was a really cool experience. The same does not apply to Elden Ring. All of these catacombs are not created equally. Some will have a cool and unique boss and a really useful piece of loot, and others will have a boss you've already seen a bunch of times and an item that you will forget about the second you leave the catacomb. Funny enough, this is actually a problem that's remedied by a second playthrough, because if you have a wiki open, you can just avoid doing all the dungeons that aren't worth it. But on a first playthrough, the one that's the best and the most memorable, you don't know what all of
that one was so fucking annoying.
These have. So if you're like me, you're probably going to do all of them and get pretty...
No, the poison one was the most annoying one.
Burnt out on fighting the same little statue fuckers in these pieces of shit. For the most part, the enemy and boss variety on display in Elden Ring will blow your back out most of the time. But seeing unique experiences that you've cherished, like the reveal and spectacle of fighting Astel, natural born of the void, get copy pasted into a separate dungeon, or fighting a godskin fucker, or both of them for like the 5th time, it's a bit disappointing. The nice thing about Elden Ring though is that you technically don't have to do most of this. If a boss is too hard or if an area is too annoying for you, you have so many other options of things to do and bosses to fight and places to see. But this also potentially leads to some issues with the game's design. Previous Souls games that had a more linear progression path could quickly halt your progress with a super tough boss, and you would have to either grind enemy mobs for souls to level up or just slam your head against a wall until you hopefully eventually break through. Elden Ring, being mostly non-linear, actually remedies that problem and finally adds a sort of difficulty slider to the Souls games. If a boss is giving you a swirly, just go do something else. Maybe find a better weapon, learn some new skills, or spend time practicing your parries against weaker bosses. I don't know, there's a lot of stuff you could do. Then once you're better prepared, head on back to that boss that was fucking you up and say, "It's opposite day, you slug." Huzzah! That's pretty amazing, right? This makes the game so much more accessible and less intense.
I made Margaret my bitch, never forget that, okay? My absolute fucking bitch, dude. You already fucking know it. Just like you can make the top of the hour ad break your bitch by subscribing for $5 or for free with a Twitch Prime by connecting your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account, where you get 1 free Prime subscription a month. That is it's like an Elden Ring final boss, if you know what I mean. Murat's so funny. He has permanent engineer brain. He walked into the room, okay?
9/10.
He saw the unfinished dog bed and immediately put it together. Like, literally immediately. Like, I didn't ask him to do so. He was like, I can't help myself. There's an unfinished project. It's like a Lego. He literally, like, and it took him like 3 seconds to put it together too. I didn't even realize. He like walked in here quietly and started fucking building it and has completely finished it. He already finished it. He put it together. Insane.
Intimidating.
Don't let this man near IKEA. Yeah, no, he's like, wait, what is there? Are those extras? What are those? Oh, it's probably for the middle, no? Oh, I'm just asking, man.
To a new player that's never been beaten to death by a rat before. But this system of sort of choosing your own difficulty could also potentially rob you of a compelling experience. This game is so goddamn big that there's bound to be stuff in the early areas that you won't find until way later in the game. And when you do find it, maybe it's a super awesome, unique boss battle with like a really cool reward that you beat in like 2 hits. In some cases, this feels amazing. It fully feeds into the power of the biggest fucker alive and can be super satisfying to just totally fart on a boss that once had you breaking 2x4s from Menards over your leg. But sometimes it can feel underwhelming and disappointing. I think the fact that the game doesn't have level scaling for enemies is much better than an alternative where it did, because level scaling can often make a game world feel pretty artificial and your progression.
Yeah. And it's also when you basically create the bullet sponge bosses, which are fucking annoying. Damn, is that even gonna fit in the crate, dude? Too big, I think.
Feel pretty meaningless. But I do think there's a world where you could have a bit of both. I think if you visit areas in the game that you're very obviously over-leveled for, the game could maybe flash a little prompt that says, hey, do you want to make this fight scale to your level to maybe make it a bit more satisfying, and maybe we give you extra runes as a reward for upping the difficulty? I would love that. Mark Brown of Game Maker's Toolkit makes a great point in his video about how Hollow Knight actually changes the layout of early areas and ups the difficulty of enemies to keep things more challenging and interesting later in the game. And I think that's a great example of something that Elden Ring could have potentially done as well. Speaking of,
I disagree. I think it's better.
21, 21, 21, 21, 21, 21, 21, 21, OMG.
I think one-shotting early game bosses is so rewarding because it makes you feel like you've actually become more powerful. Like, but then again, I'm the type of person who makes no apologies for like very clearly following a path to ensure like maximum fun. Like, I don't really give a shit. Like, some people will say like, oh, you got to explore it on your own. Like, no, I don't think so. I don't want to like fuck it up. I don't want to miss any side quests because I'm going to play it usually one time. So in order to maximize my fun, I usually will go to the right boss at the right time with the right items. And Hasan can only beat bosses when he overlevels. Yeah, of course. Classic. No one will ever let me have anything, bro. I swear to God, this chat is so fucking annoying. Oh, dude, this cheese, that cheese, overleveled cheese. I'm not even playing From Software games right now, and motherfuckers are still saying, I don't agree. Maximizing fun usually results in hand-holding and thus reducing the replayability of the null. Well, that's the thing. That's what I love about fucking From Software games. If you want to, you can read it. You can Google it, and you can fucking make sure that you follow like a specific path. But it doesn't force you to do it, and that's great. I love that. Because I don't always want that. I'll look at it if I need it. You know what I mean? I'll be gently nudged in the right direction. Like most game franchise, the worst part is the mega fans gatekeeping for whatever fucking reason. It's funny because I'm a mega fan of From Software games. I think everyone also knows that too. No, I realized Hasan is good at From Software games when he easily defeated a boss in Elden, then drops that red sword while it took me like 40 tries. Chat is wild. I think people should have realized that I'm actually not bad at From Software games when I rip through like 40 chatters in a fucking row, most of them using the same exact fucking cheese build and meta builds that I was using at the same time.
Rune rewards for defeating enemies, holy shit, they are all over the place in this game and make like zero fucking sense. Donkey talks about this.
Also, the irony is Elden Ring actually, in my opinion, eviscerated the gatekeeping for From Software games. And everyone in the fandom basically looks at the gatekeepers like they're fucking weird nerds, and they are weird nerds, because Elden Ring made this beautiful, expansive universe so accessible. Dude, this is a endlessly difficult fucking video game that has literally a built-in difficulty adjustment for the first time, but in the most From Software way possible. That difficulty adjustment comes halfway through the fucking game. If you search it out, if you don't search it out, you'll never be able to do it. And also, so many motherfuckers played it. So many people played it. It was great.
In his Elden Ring video, and I wholeheartedly agree. Like, the difficulty of an enemy does not correlate to how much money you get for defeating them. It's honestly ridiculous in a lot of cases. Also, let's talk about respeccing stat points. Once you defeat Renala at the Wizard Academy Raya Lucaria, you unlock a way to use specific larval tier items to reallocate all of the stat points that you've spent money on, and this is amazing. This means that if you find a weapon or spell that you really fuck with but don't have the stats for, you can retool your character to be able to use them and switch up your playstyle and experience one of the many amazing builds that you can do in this game. So why the fuck can't you do the same thing with weapons? Elden Ring offers no way of transferring or respeccing weapon upgrades from one weapon to another, and it makes zero fucking sense to me. You find so many fucking cool weapons in this game, and it is a total pain in the ass.
That's so interesting. I never even thought about that.
Them actually viable. Yes, you can find the smithing bells that let you buy an unlimited amount of upgrade resources from the merchant, but A, what if you don't find some of those bells on your first playthrough where you're not looking stuff up? And B, I don't understand.
No, you don't get you get unlimited smithing stones, but you don't have it for like the highest level. So if you max out your weapons, you only have it, you don't have it for every single weapon. Right? Am I not wrong? It's up to a certain point. You can spec them out. You can spec them out, but you can't, like, it's limited. +9 and +10 are limited in the game. So unless you do New Game Plus, you can't actually swap it around. I think if you made more of it, if you made more of like if you could find them, I think it would be great. Having +9, +24 weapons isn't that big of a deal. +10 and +24 are limited. Oh, okay. I don't remember. It's been a long time. But I do remember the limitation. It was devastating.
And what the harm would be in letting you get back some of your upgrade resources from a weapon if it meant that that weapon went back to its base level. Right? You would be so much more excited to find shit, even if it's something out of your typical wheelhouse. The Resident Evil 4 remake, which is fantastic, by the way, I talk about it on my second channel, Jaquan the Jeek will like, subscribe, rate, comment, 5 stars, lets you sell weapons you've upgraded back to the merchant, and you get most of the money that you've put into upgrading that weapon, which is amazing. So why can't Elden Ring have the same thing? Another thing that can feel so ass backwards and outdated are the NPC side quests and how you progress them. These games have always had super convoluted NPC side quests, and I know it's partly because Miyazaki knows that with the internet, everyone's gonna get together and figure it out so you can afford to make it complicated and whatever. I get that. But I still think that some of these more basic ones should be doable by just using your common sense. It's one thing to have NPCs not progress their dialogue or do something until you go rest or leave the area when it's a smaller, more linear game.
That's
but it's
true,
an entirely
too.
different thing to have that same bullshit in a massive...
No, that's absolutely true. That is 100% true. No, don't say no thank you. No. Searching for fucking side quests that are really cool and really fun is one thing. Okay? But like accidentally fucking ending a entire side quest because you did something before it is like, it kind of sucks. Like, there's a lot of stuff that I did because I had to Google it, you know what I mean? Or I had fucking 1,000 backseat drivers in the chat. And the irony is every single person that says wrong literally does the same thing that I did, which is fucking read it online. You know what I mean? It's not like you found it on your own. You did not find half of those fucking side quests on your own because it's like virtually impossible to find it on your own. It doesn't have to like show up on your map and it doesn't have to handhold you. I'm not saying that at all. But there are certain side quests where it's like, there are certain side quests where it's just straight up like, oh, you did one thing. You did another side quest before you did this one. It's over. You can't do it anymore. Anyway.
Open world game where people are supposed to move around from place to place, but will never do it while you're watching them. So you gotta go rest at a bonfire and then wait. No, wait, I messed up. You gotta rest again to load the guy in because it's not nighttime if you rested and then died and then came back. Like, what the fuck? I went where the fucker told me to. Why does this require so many other extra unseen steps? I only bitch and moan about this because the writing and voice acting in this game is so good, like so heartbreakingly good, and because the storytelling and lore bits are so few and far between, you'll fucking chase after whatever scraps you can find. But at the end of the day, I make these videos,
and it's like you're letting a big chunk of the fandom never see it, which is kind of sad. It feels sad. It feels sad.
Videos to criticize the things that I love. Video games. I love them so very much. And I love Elden Ring more than most other video games. I am so eternally grateful to be alive in the same timeline that FromSoftware is cranking out games of this quality. Elden Ring is not only a continuation of the Dark Souls franchise, it is an evolution of FromSoftware's trailblazing game design. A design that I think defined the last 10 years of gaming, and with Elden Ring,
it's so funny that FromSoftware's like clear storytelling choices has cultivated entire YouTube channels that are like known in the public sphere now. You know what I mean? That have almost become like mainstream, like VatiVidya. When you say VatiVidya, like everyone fucking knows what that is. Everyone knows who that is. And any gamer, I mean, at least. And it's like I can't think of another game that like requires deep investigations into the lore of it in the same way. You know what I mean?
Could very well define the next 10 years of gaming as well. A massive journey with some of the most beautiful vistas I've seen since Windows Vista, and some of the most challenging, grueling bosses that I have taken on and overcome since Windows Vista. Thank you to Hidetaka Miyazaki and FromSoftware
Hidetaka
for
Miyazaki-san.
taking a chance with Demon.
Hidetaka Miyazaki-sama. Thank you. Arigatou gozaimasu.